Efficiency. I research, I plan, I prepare. I started college at 17 and was promptly disheartened to discover it was possible to be the only person in class who had finished the reading. I raised my hand so much, even I found it annoying. Yet, in the hallways, my classmates came up and thanked me for taking one for the team. I didn't want to be taking one for the team. I wanted to be surrounded by people smarter and more interesting and harder working than I was. When all my efforts to transfer netted nothing but a spot on Harvard's waitlist, I politely made an appointment with the Dean of International Programs and began my sophomore year in Chile. 1 month in, the program mandated a group trip. I am good at programs and mandates and following directions in general. So with only the effort of sitting in a bus for 14 hours, I found myself at a travel desk in what the guidebooks were calling Chile's adventure mecca, Pucón. I believed, because I am an American, that it couldn't be that dangerous or someone would have made me sign a waiver. I only saw souvenir photos of people smiling from yellow rafts. So I paid my pesos and marched out to the white vans driven by fit young river guides. It was spring in Chile, red poppies blooming along the coast and ice melting into whitewater here in the mountains. The paved road gave way to dirt track, and after a while the vans pulled into a picnic area where they disgorged all the rafts and oars and tourists and gear. The guides explained how every yellow inflatable raft had room for 8 paddlers and 1 guide. 8 Germans filled one boat, 8 Australians filled another. Our student group of 12 presented a less tidy division. I was still struggling to solve for a fair and harmonious quotient when I realized the group had already fractured into 1 boat of 8 and 4 remainders. If you have ever been a remainder, you will know the way the majority assures you, kinder than they have ever been, that really, it doesn't matter. Stepping into still damp wetsuits, they'll say, "How exciting! You get the boat with the 2 bewildered Swedes no one else picked either." Standing around in our matching blue wetsuits and our identical red helmets and brandishing the same blue-handled yellow oars, it seemed possible we actually were interchangeable. A closer inspection, however, would reveal that the 8 had all the experienced rafters, all the men, and the woman from Colorado. They looked like a superhero team suited up to save the world. Our 6 looked like a pickup game. The Swedes were thin and sunburnt. Elisa was short. Jessica had the elastic expressiveness of someone who excelled at pantomime. Mary was tall and loud and had recently won my admiration for her courage in employing intermediate Spanish to navigate an armpit waxing. Yet no one, not even the river guides, seemed the least bit concerned. So I went with it. The river was high, someone mentioned. Good, I thought, knowing nothing. Each guide hopped into a prow, launching the Germans, the Australians, the 8, and last of all, our scrappy 6. We sat in pairs on inflatable cylinders that spanned the raft like pews. The guides called out directions in Spanish. Because the Swedes spoke no Spanish, I translated the guides "con fuerza" into "come on," and the Swedes who spoke English shouted "kom igen." The delay was manageable where the river was babbling, but where the river was raging, the sounds broke apart and the orderly beat of coordination was sent into a clatter of oars as each new instruction bumped down the line. We were executing orders through the first rapid when the raft lifted high on one side and Jessica dipped her oar into water that wasn't there. In my mind, that trough of air fits exactly the shape of her stroke. What I know is that all the force she had directed to pushing us out of the eddy, sucking us back, instead propelled us nowhere, met not a whit of resistance until it connected smack flat in the face of the paddler one pew back. With that, the violence of the river washed into our boat. Blood flowed from Elisa's broken nose and washed thin across her body. I saw her distress, but could do nothing about it but row harder. When we cleared the rapid, the guide told her to keep the swelling down by endlessly scooping cold river water up to the injury. Her face and hands turned pink from the chill. Her breath came in sobs and jags. Incapacitation was now a thing that was possible. And I had to wonder who was next. If 6 paddlers had felt skimpy, I tried to calculate what we could possibly manage with 5. The day was beautiful, and the next rapid so picturesque it had inspired the taker of souvenir photographs to wait on the bank for us to tumble by. The other rafts sailed through. It had not occurred to me that we could capsize until the raft reared up and 5 oars could not save us. With the raft upended, the pews divided our craft into chutes that spat us straight into the still rushing river. In the souvenir picture, our vertical raft fills the entire frame. Jessica and Elisa and one of the Swedes is still falling with terror on their faces. The rest of us, identifiable by a jumble of jutting arms and legs. It was cold and surprisingly loud underwater. Mary's body pressing down on me was not heavy, but it did block any obvious passage to swim to air. We were sinking, and I was afraid she would pin me down until I was more afraid of her frantic legs kicking me sharply and knocking me out. I was stuck. Then the river pulled us in its 100 currents, and if we had been imperiled together, a moment later we were scattered alone. I saw the river in flashes. I opened my mouth to water when it should have been air. I was pulled under and spat out and ripped around boulders. I was underwater when I distinctly heard my helmet's plastic buckle unclicking with one impossible click. Later, someone would tell me the way to approach these situations is with your feet out in front. You know, to push off boulders, to watch where you're going. But in that moment, all I could register was, no, there had been no discussion about what to do in the event of a water landing. Gulping and thrashing, I could not tell whether it was more dangerous to fight the current or fall under its sway. Where the water was calmer, the Germans and the Australians and the boat of 8 fished us out. I had no strength left in my arms, but no matter. They tugged us into middle seats and told us it was the best part of the whole trip. The adrenaline, the sense of purpose, the adelante equipo. They had never liked us so much. We were now floating, all of us, in perfect rafts of 10. The raft sat lower in the water. We were tossed airborne whenever the raft broke through a current or came through a fall and hit hard. But no one fell out again. We translated nothing. We shouted "Adelante equipo" in one voice at the top of our lungs. Since that river, I've circumnavigated a Korean island on a failing motorbike. I've trusted a skydiver named Loud Tom, first to strap me to his body, and then to pull the reserve parachute when the main sniveled and had to be cut away. Before even leaving Chile, I would learn the best technique for reaching into a hippo's open mouth and how to close the bus windows when I smelled tear gas from a riot. But the one souvenir photo I have is from that baptizing river.